JC24-7.
Welcome to JC24-7. I've once read the saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a broken fan belt and a leaky tire. As the saying would suggest, the journey has its challenges. And in the journey of life, it's fraught with challenges, and sometimes they loom so large that they become crises. But what does one do in crisis? How does one make it through? Is the saying Christ for crisis or Christ in crisis true? Today I have with me two young women, certainly young in the Lord, and they will share with us their experiences, and you will be able to judge for yourself whether that statement is true. I want to welcome you, Rhonda Maynard and Verna Gordon. Thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Rhonda, where are you from?
I'm from the Longdonville area.
And Verna?
I am from Claxon Bay area.
So today we will talk about an experience that you had. But before we get into that experience, tell me a little bit about yourself. Were you always Christian, Rhonda?
Yes, I was born into an Adventist home 50 years ago.
50 years ago?
50 years ago, yes.
You
I was born into an Adventist home.
All right, and Verna?
And have been an Adventist since then.
Verna?
No, but I learned about Adventism through literature, through Bible studies, someone coming into my home and dropping Bible studies.
Share that experience with us. How did you become a Christian?
I became a Christian by invitation to crusades in the area where folks from the Adventist church will pass and invite us to come out to crusade. And when I went to the crusade, whatsoever I heard, I learned that it was true. To me, I was converted, convinced, and so I get baptized.
All right. And that was how long ago?
That's about 25 to 30 years now.
About 25 to 30 years.
Yeah.
Rhonda, what has your experience been like? I know you were always Christian, but tell me, did you have that experience where you want to draw closer to God?
Well, yes. Growing up as a child, I grew up in an Adventist home, as I said. We had a mom who would wake you up at 5 o'clock in the morning for family worship. She would wake us, we'd worship in the evening. And whether we went to church on a Saturday or not, our house had church. So we would have to get ready for 9, and you'll have Sabbath school, you'll have lesson study, you'll have the full works. So whether you made it to church or not, you were going to be in church. All right, and I grew up with that. So when I left my mom's house and I had my family and my kids, you know, the trend kind of continued. Yeah.
All right. So just before we get to speaking about your experiences, before your situation took place, Verna, did you have a reason to doubt God? What was your experience with God like?
Well, it was an experience of, you know, you're in church, you're just going through the emotion and you're just there. Every Sabbath morning, Wednesday night, I was very serious about God. Wednesday night, Sunday night, I'm not missing a service. And close, because I had a little group with 3 members who we used to study the Bible.
Okay.
And with that, I learned to get closer to God.
Right.
But when this incident happened, after I get closer, getting to know Him, want to know Him more because of what happened to me with the flood.
And what about you, Rhonda? What was your experience before your situation? What your experience with God? How was it?
I have to join with her because, you know, you're born into the church. So Adventist kids, you're born into the church. All you know is Adventism, you know, and you believe that your relationship with God is just as it should be.
Right.
Because I am a Christian, I go to church, I'm active in church, you know, I pay my tithes. So you believe you're a good Christian, and you also believe that that relationship that you have with God is
Tight.
It's tight, you know. And when disaster strikes, it makes you realize then and there whether or not
So before
your relationship was
what it should have
what
been.
it should have been.
So Verna, let's talk about your experience. Tell us what happened. Tell us when it happened, how it happened. Go ahead.
When this experience happened to me, I was not at home. I was at work. So I had somebody staying at my home when she called to me that the house is flooded and everything is just swimming around.
So we're not talking about a usual flood.
No, that disastrous flood.
How was the house designed that brought about this?
Okay, well, my house is close to the road, and the road, we have an upstairs and downstairs. I live at the downstairs. So my house is facing into the road. Over the road has, it is a little higher, but through the road keep building up. My house get lower and lower. So when that rain fall and it come from over the road, it comes straight into my window through the sides all over. So that day, that flood was very heavy water.
And what did you lose?
Well, everything you can see. Lose everything. The neighbor and all even run across to help. They pick up the fan and it fell back in the water. So that is to tell you how high it was. Very high, that everything was lost.
And what happened after the flood? What happened?
Well,
did anyone give you assistance? Were you able to save anything?
We saved a television and a fan, the fan that fell in the water, it was working.
Okay.
So the pastor get to know, he came and fire brigade came.
Right.
When they see how disastrous the flood was, they saw me laughing and going around and talking. But it had a neighbor next to me, which the flood was worse than mine.
Right.
So I run trying to help him with the flood instead of me. So the fire brigade guy said, who this flood really happened to? So I said, me. He said, ma'am, can I shake your hands? I said, why? He said, because normally when we go to people who has this disaster, they are all on the ground, rolling, holding their belly. And here you are laughing, shaking hands and helping others.
Right.
What make you so? He say, I said, because of God.
Amen.
Thank God for him and knowing him that has me this way. But I was always this way through my childhood, my life, always laughing at everything that comes my way, putting it first because I know to put God first in everything. So it wasn't that bad and hard for me.
Beautiful. What an experience. So God was in the flood.
Yeah.
But what about the fire? Would God be in the fire? Would Christ be there in that kind of crisis? You must stay with us. We will find out when we get back.
Tis so sweet, trust in Jesus, just to take him at his word, just to rest upon his promise, just to know thus saith the Lord. Oh, Jesus, yeah, Jesus, how I trust him and how I prove him more and more. Oh, Jesus, precious Jesus. Oh, for grace to trust him trust him. Precious Jesus, Savior, friend, and just to rest upon his promise that he will be with me until the end. Oh, Jesus, yeah, Jesus, how I trust him, how I prove him more and more. Oh, Jesus, precious Jesus. Oh, for grace to trust him more. Oh, glory, glory to his name. How I trust him, how I prove him more and more. Oh, Jesus, precious Jesus. Oh, for grace to trust him more. Oh, glory, glory to his name. How I trust him, how I prove him more and more. Oh, Jesus, precious Jesus. Oh, for grace to trust him more. Yeah, yes, just a little bit more grace. Just a little bit more grace. Yeah, yes. If I could have a little bit more, if I could have a little bit more, yeah, yes. Oh, for grace to trust, just to trust him
We just heard how God was in the flood, and he assisted Verna in helping her neighbors during a disastrous situation, even though she had lost everything. But right now we will find out whether or not God will be in the fire. Rhonda, share with us your experience. What happened? Where did it happen? How did it happen?
Okay. November 22nd. I'll never forget that day. November 22nd, 2011. No, 2002 actually. 2002. It was the wee hours of the morning. But before that, taking you back a little bit, I had 3 kids, so I had a family of 5. So my husband was working the night shift, and I was home with the 3 kids, and I kept telling my daughters, go sleep, go and sleep, go and sleep. I have to go to work in the morning, go and sleep. Just now, mommy, go and sleep, mommy, a little more time, go and sleep, till eventually they settled down and they went to bed. And I remember John coming home sometime after 11 or so, hugging me, kissing me, and going back to, and rolling over and going back to sleep. And then a few hours after, I remember him shaking me, Rhonda, wake up, wake up. There's a fire in the house. And when he woke me up, my 2 daughters were with him. And we went to the bedroom because the fire was in the girls' room. But it was a very small fire that was contained, so nobody felt any alarm. And so John went outside to get a mug of water to throw on the fire. But when he opened the door, because of how the house was structured, bedrooms, living room, dining room, one place, a landing toilet and bath, kitchen. So he had to open, so he opened the living room door to get to the kitchen door. So the fire spread a bit because of the little bit of oxygen that came through the door. Eventually, when he came back into the room, he had gone for water for a little bit of fire, but when he came back, it was a bigger fire. So I remember saying to him, open the door, because there was a door right behind him that would lead directly into the washroom area. Open the door, there's water there, open the door. Not thinking that, or remembering, not being scientifically, that when there's fire and oxygen, trouble. All right. So when he opened that door, the fire started to climb all over the curtains. It just ran up the walls, on the bed. It was just like chaos. So we decided there and then, it's just material. So we just leave the house. So the 4 of us headed out. But remember, I said it's a five-member family. So when he opened the burglar proofing, and when he was about to open that door, the actual door, my son Nikolai started to scream, "Mommy, mommy, mommy." So I ran back into the fire for him. And where he was, the fire is on the end of the bed. He's inside the bed. Now, I'm standing in fire but not feeling the fire because all I'm concerned with is saving my son. And I'm trying to get him and he's pulling back and I am asking him, "Why are you running from mommy? Why are you running from me?" Not knowing it's because he's seeing me on fire. And eventually I just roughed him because he was just 3 years old. And as I headed out, because I was holding him like this, so when I headed out the door, a rush of fire hit me here. And when I got out the door, my daughters and my husband were still standing on the door, and I said to John, "If I am feeling so hot, how is this poor child feeling?" Not knowing that at that time, nobody was going through the door where the 3 people were standing, and the only exit was where I was going. But I went there, not knowing, but thinking that I am throwing water to stop the heat from my son. But the heat was inside of me, not my son, because he hadn't gotten burned. And while I was standing there, because I said to John, "Call me when you open the door." But God knew he couldn't call because nobody was going through the door. It wasn't opening. So a ball of fire. And I tell you, it was a ball of fire. It came like the speed of lightning. So I'm standing there and I look back and I just see this ball of orange coming towards me. And where I was standing was, you know, where you have your washing sink and then you have like a little wall. So you see in the neighbors outside. So that's where I was. And when the ball of fire was coming towards me, times like that you don't even think. But I always say an angel lifted me up because there was no way I could have lifted Nikolai because he was 3 years old. Lifted him up on that sill and jump over and land on my feet because I landed on both feet. When I landed on both feet, I went around the house expecting to find the 3 members of my family, only to realize that there was just silence, you know. And then John said to me I heard him through the door, "Get somebody to open the door. He can't open the door," because it was jammed with the heat. And I remember screaming because I am seeing the fire now. I am seeing the fire in the house, but the fire still wasn't where they were. Because remember that one door was closed. That door was still closed. Eventually the neighbors came and they prized the door open and they were able to pull his body out. When they pulled him out, he was still alive, but I had run to the neighbor's house. So all I was told is that he got up. He would have already seen the 2 kids lying inside, because by then they were dead. Me and my son were in the back where he knew we were, but immediately, that's another thing, immediately I jumped over that thing. That entire kitchen area exploded. It exploded. It was like a boom, a kaboom. It just exploded. So it was like you came outside, you're alive, but you look back and you know your 2 daughters are lying there. You're telling yourself that the 2 in the back died in the explosion because he didn't see us because I went across. And they said he just lay down and that was it. you know, and eventually I got up in the hospital. That was Saturday morning. I got up in the hospital and I was like, you know, it's still really kind of groggy and shaken, and I'm walking to the bathroom, and when I got to the hospital bathroom, I tell you, the only thing I didn't do was scream. When I looked at my face, it was like a balloon. My face was swollen. It was burnt all hair, my entire nose was burnt. And then it was like God took a plaster of Paris and put it from the tip of my nose to the top of my forehead. It was as black as tar. And I remember I would just look at it every day and feel it, and it's hard. And then one morning I got up about 6 weeks after and it fell off.
And you
See,
have
God
the
gave
nose.
me a perfect nose. But if you look at me, it's a little fairer than the rest of me because it's a new nose, you know, and that was God. And but I remember one thing, lying in the hospital, all I remember in the hospital is the bed being surrounded by people. But when I came out of the hospital, I remember my sister, because she was a bit angry. How can you sing? How can you sing? Because all they told me is that, all the pastors, everybody who visited me, they said, you know, it's like you come to comfort somebody in the hospital and the person is comforting you instead, because I was just singing comforter, that's who you are to me. But I had to sing, right? And I think at that point, God knew that it was either sing comforter or go crazy, because I just had two choices, right? And but that just made me realize that what we feed our minds with is what comes out in times of trauma.
So I'm listening to the two of you, and what I hear coming through is that in spite of your circumstances, what you would have learned about holding on to God is what took you through. I wanted to ask what happened with your relationship with God after, but I'm guessing that's already answered. That's already answered. But I want to find out from you, if you had to share this experience, what would you pinpoint as the hand of God? How did good come out of this? Or if good came out?
I remember when I came out of the hospital, it was either just before the funeral or just after. I remember I came home and I was lying in bed, and I was singing this song. Oh my goodness, I can't remember the name. But I was singing this song, and Mommy said to me, do you know that's a hymn in the Bible, in the hymnal? And I said, oh, day by day. Day by day, and with each passing moment, strength I find to find my... And I was singing that song. And she bought it for me, and she said, yes, that's a hymn in the Bible. I said, in the hymnal. I said, Mommy, I didn't know that. She said, but you've been singing it, and you've been singing the entire song, right? But the highlight for me would have been when I said to God, you said that everything happens for our good. But I'm saying to you right here and right now, I cannot see the good in this, so show it to me real quick. I remember that's what I said to God. You said that, and that's your word, and I'm holding you to it, but show it to me real quick. And then I got the autopsy, and I got the death certificate, and I saw that, because I never heard them scream. They never screamed at any point in time, because there was never any reason to fear, because they were there with their father and there was no fire. But I remember when I looked at the death certificate, I saw 100% smoke inhalation. And that said to me, I remember then and there, closing my eyes and saying, I love you, Jesus. Because he showed me there and then that my kids who had this flawless skin, that if they had lived, they would have been scarred beyond recognition, because remember, they would have been burnt. And I said, I know they would not have wanted that for themselves. I would not have wanted that for them. But then my consolation was that they're asleep.
Right.
They are not dead. They're asleep. Yes, they're dead in the sense that, you know, the first that, but they're asleep, and that God was going to restore them to me perfect. Right? Yeah.
And what about you, Verna? Did you see the hand of God in your situation?
Yeah, I would like to leave that trust God where you cannot trace Him. Even though we don't understand things that happen sometimes to us, we have to trust Him.
Right.
We have to learn to trust in Jesus. So we have to trust God where we cannot trace Him.
And if you would have a few last words to share with anyone, what would you say?
I guess I'll have to leave them with what I feed myself with every day.
Okay.
Because every morning when I wake up, I say it because I want it reinforced in my mind. And every morning I get up and I would say to myself, sight beyond what I see. You know what's best for me. Restore my mind, renew my heart. For whatever comes, I'm going to be ready. Strength to face any test. Because with you, I'm blessed. With you in control, I know that I'm going to be ready. And that helps me to not worry about what may or may not happen in my life, because God has already proven to me that He is still on the throne, and that His promises to us are true, and that His strength is perfect when all minds are gone.
Well, there you have it. Isaiah 43, 2 and 3 says that when we go through the flood, when we go through the fire, God will be with us. So God's word was true to us today. And we also found out that that saying, Christ was in and He was there for their crisis. So what about you today? Is your crisis too big for Christ to handle? I think not. But if you invite Him in, He will take charge, He will lead you, and He will bring you out victorious. So trust Him today. We had a riveting time here on JC24/7. But we want you to be with us next time. So we'll see you then. Take care until next week.